Oh dear, it's testing season.
From NJSLA to NJGPA, and finally to AP exams. As spring approaches, so does the heavy loaded testing season for students at PHS. Each spring, PHS freshmen to junior students are required to take an assessment in math and language arts called NJSLA. Moreover, for the class of 2024 and 2025, the NJGPA test was also a state graduation requirement. NJSLA and NJGPA are used to assess the school's curriculum and students' academic abilities. As we approach mid-May, when testing will take place, Mr. Adam Rothschild explains how he is working to ensure the smooth testing experience at PHS this year.
I mean, there's so many moving parts with making sure students have they're prepared for it, making sure their computers are working, making sure they're getting knowledge of what the tests are, where they're being tested. But there's so many moving parts that as students you guys don't always see, between rostering and staff assignments and testing locations and students that may need accommodations. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes, but it's going well.
So, as you probably know, every year there's some issues with coordinating state testing for everyone. Sure. What steps is the district taking to ensure a smoother testing experience from Wi-Fi and technology and
Sure.
things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we have infrastructure trials for every test that we run. We do a practice test for the PSAT, for the NJSLA, NJGPA, AP testing. I mean, there's so many different checkpoints we do throughout the year.
What do you do to preserve the academic integrity of test results for both NJGPA, AP, and state testing?
That's a great question. Listen, I mean, we have equal spacing for tests. We have seating charts. We have to make sure that we know where students are being monitored, making sure there's test proctors. We have at least 2 proctors in every single NJSLA, NJGPA testing room. So there's no cheating. That's a pretty big no-no from the state. I mean, that could cause a lot of consequences for that if there's cheating and irregularities that we would have to report to the state. So that's a pretty big deal. I mean, we take it pretty seriously.
While school testing is an incredibly important way to assess students' academic progress and our school curriculum, many students are advocating for a more accurate way to assess our academic abilities due to the high amount of stress that can be caused by this form of testing.
I don't feel like the state testing is necessary. First, I don't see the necessity of doing so. Second, I don't think it actually reflects the student's actual ability of the content.
For state testing, like NJSLA, how do you feel about that being a graduation requirement or a yearly requirement for students?
Honestly, I really do not like state testing. It just adds to extra stress, really not necessary. It gives me extra stress and the scores come back in the mail and it's just so stressful and your college doesn't even see it anyways. So I don't see why that has to be a graduation requirement.
What is your opinion on state testing?
I hate it. I think it's unnecessary and I don't learn anything from it.
Testing is a method of assessing students that has long been debated. Its accuracy and its impact on students' well-being. All types of standardized testing can be incredibly nerve-wracking. For example, another common contributor to stress in students, especially as May approaches, is AP testing. But Mr. John McMichael explains how he and other counselors, such as Mr. Rothschild, work to make this process easier for students at PHS.
Obviously, we rely on the teachers quite a bit to communicate directly to students. We do send emails ourselves directly to students and their parents.
How do you ensure that? How do you monitor the tests yourself? Do you hire teachers or do you do it yourself?
So actually, Mr. Rothschild just made an enormous spreadsheet. I think since we got back from break, so last week, and then he emailed the entire staff. So kudos to the grown-ups that work here. It's not fun. It's kind of boring, but we're there to make sure that everything goes smoothly, obviously to make sure nobody uses their phone or does anything like that. But it's a team effort.
After learning about the heavy loads of behind-the-scenes work that is going on to coordinate AP testing, let's hear more from students to learn about their experience with upcoming AP tests at PHS.
Why did you choose to take AP Comp Sci freshman year?
I think computer science is just like a really important course, and it gets you started on other things like computer graphics or Python. And I think it's just like, because AP CSP, it's principal, so it's just like completely general knowledge, and it's not specific like Python or something.
Do you feel any stress because you have to prepare for AP exams later in May?
A little bit, particularly because I'm also in orchestra, so it kind of like clashes with, there's a lot of events in May, so like my May calendar is just completely full. So yeah, a little bit.
How do you manage the stress that comes along with preparing for the AP exam?
I do all my work in class, and then I don't like to do my work out of class, that way I don't have to think about it.
I feel like the closer I get, the more stressful it's becoming because it feels like more real. Like maybe a few weeks ago during spring break, I wasn't like as stressed out, but now that it's a lot closer to the actual date of the AP exams, I definitely feel that like it's getting more real to me.
And how do you manage to like try to cope with testing stress, especially next year as a junior? There's going to be even more APs.
Yeah, so right now, like I just try to find time whenever I can to work on APs because I do have to like do my homework and work for my other classes and things outside of school. So I think it's really just like doing things outside of school that you enjoy and like other clubs you might have, sports you might do, and then having that as like your enjoyment time and then focusing on your APs as well.
And self-studying AP macro.
Do you think that like self-studying AP outside of school can be more stressful compared to like being prepared and following along with the teacher?
I definitely think it can be more stressful just because you have to take time out of like outside of school to learn all the information and prepare for the test on your own.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel prepared for the test?
I do feel pretty prepared, but I think it's very time consuming now because I have to like take practice tests and go over my answers on my own.
And then like going into junior year, right, it's going to be even more stressful. So how do you think you can like kind of manage that stress with AP testing and state testing as well?
I think since next year I'm going to be doing pretty much all of my APs with the school. Having class time or like having like a free period even is going to help a lot with like time management. And generally I'm probably going to put a lot more focus on APs in my junior year than I am right now.
What APs are you taking this year?
I'm taking BC Cal, AP Chem, and APUSH.
And what kind of APs are you going to plan to take in the future?
I plan on taking AP Bio, AP Lang, and AP World.
And taking like 3 APs as a sophomore is a lot. And how do you try to manage the stress that comes with taking all these?
I think it's helpful to like find friends in your APs, so it makes going to class and taking APs and studying more bearable.
And how are you managing the stress that comes with taking an AP in sophomore year?
I've had to do lots of time blocking in order to manage my schedule, in order to manage my time.
Are you stressed out by all the APs?
Kind of. 2 classes are kind of more challenging than the regular classes I take, and definitely a lot more workload.
And as the AP testing like season is approaching, how are you handling the stress that comes with taking the AP test?
I feel like your mental state is very important, like your mindset, just like relax, be prepared, you get the result that you get, don't like over stress about it.
What APs do you take? AP Macro, AP Micro, AP World, AP Lang, AP Bio, AP Art.
Do you feel like you take a lot of APs for the grade that you're in?
I think it's a decent amount. Like, it's not like overkill.
If you do like get stressed or anything like that, what do you do to like help yourself relax and manage that stress?
Yeah, I just go on walks like around the neighborhood, and I take like breaks. Like I study for like 2 hours and I take like 30 minutes.
So how was your experience with the NJSLA testing earlier this month?
I would say it was just a hassle. I mean, what the testing on was pretty basic stuff. I think the math was only up to algebra 2, I believe. But it's a graduation requirement, so I can't get around it.
How are you kind of preparing for these APs as like the testing season is approaching?
Well, the only AP I have to do well on is biology because I intend to take a university course, so I have to get a 5 on that. So I'm just prioritizing that over the other ones. In terms of like humanities, like world history or English, I'm not too worried about it because those require typically less studying. Since like English, you either know how to write or you don't know how to write. And world, I'm going to review some details, but because of a push, like I know how to write all the DBQs, LEQs, and everything. So.
And how are you going to handle the stress with having to get a 5 on an API test and things like that?
I think I'm just going to remain confident in my abilities. I know I've studied a lot in that.
What APs are you taking this year?
Taking AP Macro, Micro, and A Push.
And taking 3 APs, how do you feel about that?
I think Macro, Micro is not really an AP, so I don't really study for the test anyways. And then A Push, I have like one of the harder teachers, so it's kind of a lot of homework. And we're kind of behind on the content too, so I'm a little stressed about it.
And how do you plan to manage that stress?
I'm gonna have to like probably study more outside the class, and then I'll also need to like just time management, I guess.
While many students have shared their methods of managing AP testing stress, counselors Mr. Rothschild and Mr. McMichael are also here to share their advice for every high schooler watching who might be struggling with their mental well-being in this busy testing season.
Again. So how do you as a counselor and like teachers help students minimize testing stress?
So it's a big question. We wear many hats as counselors and working in testing as well. So it's important that students obviously know that our offices are safe spaces. They can come talk to us. We're there to help and support, any kind of emotion. We really care about you guys, and we want to make sure that you guys are comfortable, and those feelings are totally normal and natural to kind of feelings, testing anxiety and stress and pressure. There's a lot weighing on these things very often. Just go into it with, you're doing the best you can. It doesn't have to be like as stressful as we all think about it.
The AP test is a lot of pressure, and I want to try to minimize the pressure for them because I know that when they get stressed, you don't tend to do as well when you're stressed. So my job is to be like a cheerleader to help them get ready, but also to kind of relax a little bit as they're preparing.
It's important to try to not be fighting your own nerves and your own nervousness and anxieties when you're trying to do your best on the test, right? So it is important to relax. We could also get into maybe like, breathing exercises or yoga or things people do to kind of de-stress and put themselves in a good frame of mind so that they're able to perform at their best. We could certainly talk about those things as well. So there's things students have control over, and they've been working so hard since September, and they have great teachers. So just, reminding people, I guess it's maybe like a coach, like, you've trained so hard, you've practiced so much, you're ready for this, you can do it, right? So just knowing you can, believing you can.
In the end, testing is just another form of learning to believe in ourselves, one step at a time. At PHS, there is an incredible amount of resources available to us. Everyone is going through a similar situation. Let's believe in ourselves and the people who make these tests possible.